Hello, this is Zach, and welcome to my channel, Feel Free to Argue. I've been looking at the Iraq War a lot lately and trying to figure out how bad things have been getting in Iraq. And so I ran some numbers. I think that for a frame of reference, it would be useful to first look at the despotic reign of Saddam Hussein. So I took a bunch of maximal figures, because oftentimes when deaths are listed for some aspect of the Hussein regime, they give a range because we're not sure how many people died. So I went to one of these particular websites that tried to calculate all the deaths of Saddam Hussein. In each case they gave a range. I used the maximum side of that range. So let's look at several aspects of Hussein's regime. First, let's look at the Iran-Iraq War. Maximal casualty reports for the Iraqis were 340,000. For the Iranians, 730,000. For the first Gulf War, maximum 200,000. One for the second Gulf War, 11,000. In terms of the deaths from sanctions, really not much discrepancy between minimum and maximum numbers. It's pretty much a generally agreed upon amount of 500,000. And in terms of the number of dissidents killed for various reasons during the entire length of Hussein's regime, you have 300,000. Now you add all of these figures together and you get a total figure of 2,081,000. Now when you break that down in terms of how many people Saddam Hussein was killing each one of his years in power, dividing by the total 24 years that he was in power, you get a total of 87,000 people per year, which is pretty impressive. That's a lot of people. But if you look at the death totals in terms of excess civilian death due to the occupation, and these are deaths that are attributable to the United States now, you get some rather impressive numbers also. Two surveys have been done which I think methodologically are the most sound. These being the Lancet survey that was concluded in July of '06 and the Opinion Research Business survey, which was done was concluded in 2007. Both of these, which and their results basically corroborate one another, estimate that the current death total, excess Iraqi deaths due to the occupation, at 1.1 million. If we take this number of Iraqi deaths and we divide it by the 5 years of the U.S. occupation, you get a grand total of 220,000 Iraqis killed per year. Now the way that they got to this total is, without going too much into the methods of the survey, but just the basic way that they did it was to look at the rate of death in Iraq prior to the U.S. occupation, and then looked at the rate of death after the U.S. occupation and attributed all excess death, all excess civilian death, to the occupation. Now there are a lot of factors that go into this, and there are a lot of things that are included, and they're not trying to track down every single death. But of course that wasn't possible in pre-occupation Iraq under the sanctions either. So you have a rate of 220,000 per year for the United States. And this once again is compared against Saddam Hussein with all deaths in the Iran-Iraq War laid at his feet, and all deaths from sanctions. Now, if you subtract out these totals, which I think a lot of people would probably do, then you are left with a much smaller grand total. Once again, only dealing with maximal estimates of the remaining factors, you're left with 1,351,000 people killed, and that gives you a new total of 56,000 per year for Saddam Hussein, which is roughly 1/4 of the U.S. per year total. So I guess what I'm saying is, looking at these numbers, I think it's inescapable that we must conclude that by the same standards that we call Saddam Hussein a ruthless, evil dictator, we have to turn the camera around and look at ourselves in much the same light. And when we look at this, we can see that we have caused many more problems in Iraq than Saddam Hussein did. And it's not surprising to me that people now are getting nostalgic in Iraq for, at least, if not for Saddam Hussein, then life under the sanctions, which were called genocidal by members of the United Nations. This is very worrisome, and I think we really need to think about getting out of Iraq immediately.